Welcome to iHeart Geek.
And welcome to the iHeart Geek Show. I'm Dub.
I'm Satomi.
And we are going to be talking all things being in a band. Yeah. Whoo! Where do we start on this one, Satomi? Actually, let's start. Let me give my kind of resume thing. I've been in, I think, about 18 different bands. Punk, metal, jazz, Christian, just rock and roll in general, country. Even a bad white guy reggae band that was really bad.
Ooh.
Yeah, that it.
I'm
not
just
proud of all my mistakes.
I'm suddenly picturing you in dreadlocks, and that is not something that I wanted to like a mental erasure on that one. Much as I love you, Deb.
At the time, I had long hair at least, and I tried to do the little crappy braids. Yeah. We only did one gig, so
we're gonna have to find pictures of that and post it on our site.
God those never see the light of day. So let's hear about your resume, because I know you've done more bands than me.
I don't know if it's more. I just have a
more
very wide variety. Well, you never know. I mean, we had albums, but I mean, I have a history of playing in orchestras, in for live musical theater, for opera. I've also I was a band member, cast member. I've got my acting hat on. Let me take that acting hat off, put my musician hat on. I was in an all-female Celtic rock band called Killian's Angels for 7 years.
I had seen you before and I didn't even know it.
Shut the front.
I thought we discussed this. Yes.
I don't think so.
I saw them somewhere. I saw you guys somewhere when I first showed up in town.
This pleases me. This absolutely pleases me. But we were together for a long time, and we have a couple albums under our belt and a couple commercials and things like that. And we were in one of our recordings was in the pilot episode of Elementary.
Really?
And then we were also part of an award-winning Jeopardy commercial. So, it's like we had some things going, man.
Nice.
And then of course as an independent artist, I've dabbled. I've been all over the place, honey. I've been all over the place. Yes. Yeah.
So let's discuss some of like the ins and outs of being in a band. Why do we do it is I think the question, because just like every relationship you'll ever be in, it's going to end in heartbreak. No matter how long, on a long enough timeline, it's always going to end in heartbreak. Now with a band, it happens more often. I mean, it is mentally cruel to yourself to be in a band, but I'll still be in another band at some point in my life.
I think it's because you've created this micro family, right?
Yeah.
And so you're going to end up with everybody filling each position of the dysfunctional family. And eventually it doesn't matter how much you love each other. Somebody's going to get on somebody's last nerve and is going to say something that they regret. And it's usually going to happen, dude. It's usually going to happen in the middle of the set, right?
Oh, yep. Now, have you ever had a stage a band blow up on stage? I have wanted to, but we have. The last time that happened, the closest I've ever gotten, it was right after we got off stage, and it was I Quit. It was ugly, but I've never done the blow up on stage. Have you ever done that?
No, I mean, we've definitely done the, we're just going to go through the shit. Like the passive aggressive, you're smiling, and inside you're like, I can't curse here, but you're just shooting daggers at each. It's just like, okay. But I mean, there was one that was not, it was less angry. It kind of crossed over into preposterous. With a sub once, and I say this with love because I love her to death, but she did not understand. She was a sub, and she decided to play on a tune that we had not rehearsed with her, that we called it because we had a request, and she was the drummer. Now drummers have a lot of power.
We're going to get into
great
drummers,
power.
Yes.
Oh, yes. With great power
comes great immaturity.
Great.
We know anybody that's been in a band, you know what I'm talking about when I say drummer and immature. Sorry.
Well, you know that joke, right? You know that joke when the kid comes up to his mom and goes, "Mommy, I want to be a drummer when I grow up." And the mom turns to him and goes, "Oh, honey, drummers don't grow up."
You can't be both.
Can't be both. Uh, no, I'm sure there's some very mature drummers out there. I just haven't met a whole lot of them. But anyhow, so she decided to go ahead and play with us, but she didn't know our arrangement. She didn't know our groove on it, none of it.
Mm.
And so we tried to sort of guide her. You do the big head nods.
Yeah. Oh,
On
yes,
the
we
beat,
know
you're like,
that
yes,
one.
yeah, where you're like, I am drumming with my head now, and I realize I'm doing this with a mic and I'm going back and forth on purpose.
Yep.
And she wasn't following. So I tried a different way. And so finally I just walked away. I was singing harmony on this. I walked away from the mic and I went up to her and I was like hitting my foot on the floor and, swaying my headstock and like just trying to get her. And she wasn't. And so I just finally looked at her. I went, just stop. Stop.
Oh.
Just stop playing. And she just smiled at me and kept going. And I finally, so loud, my lead singer in front heard me. I just went, why aren't you stopping?
Oh, but I will say this: you handle this better than I've handled.
Well, thank you. I am the diplomat. I want to hear your story.
I got a story on this one too.
Yeah.
Another one of those.
Mhm.
We had been playing together very long, but we had a gig for some reason, and he could not keep the time right. He was like,
It was
dragging
just a magazine
time.
to him.
So I walked behind the drums while I'm still playing my bass.
No.
And this is when I was experimenting with the wireless technology, so I could go all over stage. Don't let the bass player ever do this.
Ever.
So I walked up next to him and I kicked his foot off the kick pedal and started playing the kick.
Oh no! Oh.
That was our last gig. Oh.
Oh God.
Okay. I wanted it to be better. I really did. I mean, hey, the guy from
Clearly.
Sons can do it. Why can't I? You know.
I mean that is like that is the non-band equivalent of like somebody's driving and you just yank their hands off the steering wheel and you're like, listen, just let me.
But it can be necessary. Now, honestly, I'm at a point in my career with I don't play with anybody that is not at a certain level.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sounds really snobby and all that, but all of those experiences, when you get people like that, that's when you get to learn so much. And I'm so glad for every horrible, embarrassing time on stage I ever had, because it always makes you better.
It not only does it make you better, it makes you not be that person next time. And this is not. Okay. Listen.
Okay. I know you're going on something.
So, well, no. It's so here's the deal. Everybody makes mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody poops, and we're not just talking in the toilet. So I have so much like empathy for this. And when I say I don't want to be that person, I'm not like that person is evil for the rest of my life. I don't want to be that person in that moment who made that choice.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do it's like, oh, great. Thank you for doing that so I could learn from you so I never have to walk that walk of shame.
Well, and part of that is the learning process on it, really, because no matter how good you are as a musician, it is a learning process in a band. No matter how bad the musicians are you're playing with, you're going to learn something. I promise you.
Not only that, but I do think something that, and I'm going to say, I'm just assume everything I'm saying is with love today.
Ooh,
the general public, and this includes people who do a lot of this on social media. They do not, you cannot grasp until you are on stage with a whole bunch of people staring at you, having expectations of a certain level of competency, that you have to do it in the moment right now. There are no takesy-backsies. There's no, ooh, I messed that up, I'm going to do another take. That does not exist when you are in live performance with a band. And so it's not just that fact. It raises the stakes as a performer when you get up there. Yes. It's a reason why public speaking is one of the top fears for people.
Mhm.
It's the same thing with playing a musical instrument in public. You can do it all day long on your, recording it on your phone because
And
you can do it as many times as you want.
mhm.
And then you can edit that sucker together. Right?
Mhm.
But doing it live, that's a horse of a different color.
It
That's what that is.
Wow, you just went total redneck on that one, and I
No, I
appreciate that
went
quite a
Wizard
bit.
of Oz, but if
It's
I'm reaching out
outstanding.
to our redneck listeners,
I know we have
I
a
will
few.
I will hang out with you on that porch, even though I hate mosquitoes.
Ugh.
And it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be a porch. I'll hang out with you in the bar. I'll hang out with you at the I don't know, fill in the blank. Anything
Yeah.
that's not stereotypical, because now I've just walked myself into a hole. So we're gonna move on.
Well, actually, that porch thing that kind of put me on another kind of point I want to make.
Talk.
There's a lot of fun being in a band in front of a bunch of people. It's also a lot of fun to be on a porch with 3 or 4 really good guitar
Yes.
players, singers, whatever, and just going for it. That is a different kind of energy, and it is amazing because you get to hear these guys that will never have a chance. They're never going to get heard, but are freaking amazing, and they inspire the crap out of you while you're playing. That's one of those. I don't know.
Now-
do you call that performance? Because you're not in front of anybody.
It is a kind, because you've got other people listening. I
Yeah.
have to tell you, I want to hear more about this, because I come from a background where everything is rehearsed,
Ugh.
right?
Yeah. We're different worlds on that one.
We're very different worlds. Now, I have expanded out into some improv, but I still have, so for me, I have my Muggle angel on my shoulder. I've got my Muggle angel,
Mhm.
and I've got my creative angel. My Muggle angel who sits there and goes, and you know this, Dub, because we've worked on some stuff together, that goes, if it's not perfect,
Don't bother.
don't bother. And I've let a lot of that go, but I still, if I am sitting on a porch with a bunch of people who are amazing, I have to work really hard to push through my self-consciousness, even at the level that I have performed, because I am so used to being able to prepare at least a little bit. And so when I am on a porch, so the place that I feel comfortable are like my colleagues who already know me, who I know will forgive me when they know my voice, they know who I am. So
Mhm.
they're like, if she messes up, we don't have an expectation, because we're all on the same page as far as our talent, as far as what we know we can all do, and we just have a great time. The situation you're talking about, and I want to hear you talk more about it, is, for me, I would just be in awe. I would just sit there and just be like, just play at me, please. I do your best Ken impersonation and, sing, push you around for
Yeah.
2.5 hours. And I will sit there, happily listening to the creative genius that is flowing through you, that has not
Mhm.
been prepared. So talk to me about what your experience is like, what that feels like to create from that space.
Well, I say it's okay. So we're not talking about religion, but I grew up in church, right?
Okay.
And I grew up
Take me
with.
to church. Okay.
We
Go ahead.
had some amazing musicians in my church, right? I mean,
Mhm.
just Nashville quality musicians. I've always grown up with that. I've always had that around me. So when I started playing when I was 14, 15 years old, and I could I'd hold a root note and be really nervous if I had to do a switch. I mean,
Mhm.
that's how you start.
Yeah.
But all of these guys this is how I learned how to listen and how to be as minimal as I can and like give room for other people. And I think everybody needs to have that time in the little chair. And I call that the little chair. The
I
one
like
that
that.
you're not there you're not going to add anything. You're there to listen and
support.
play. And
Yeah.
you're going to play and you're going to start getting confidence. A year of that to me is like a year of Juilliard. It really is. Because you're going to, more than anything else, you're going to learn your ears.
Yes.
That's all these bands today don't seem like they listen to each other as much, and you can tell the difference. And I'm not saying, back in my day, I'm not doing that, but a lot of bands, they don't listen to each other, and it's a very sterile same project. Now, this is why I don't like the ultra rehearsed stuff, because like you listen to Dave Matthews Band, right? They are successful because they'll go off on a tangent that they've never done before. in front of 20,000 people.
Mhm.
And there's something that's beautiful and magical about it. And if you, how I practice, this is for anybody that's ever in a band with me. We learn the basics of the song. We learn where the stops are. We learn the melodies. We learn the harmonies, and then shut up and listen to everybody else. And because I don't want to know it so well that I can't, there's something we need to get a solo right here. You can bring in a guest musician and have a solo right there and not have to worry about it. So, and I think there's a lot of positive how you do it with the ultra, everything's rehearsed. I think
Well,
there's a balance.
there's
They're
a
different
freedom
musicians.
actually that comes with the ultra rehearsal as well.
Yeah.
Because if you do have someone come in as a guest who is loose, it's very easy to make space for them because
Mhm.
you know it so well. And you know that somebody looks at you and you're like, I know exactly where to come back in. I know exactly where my feet are at every minute. I think it's I think they're just two sides of the same coin, right?
Yeah.
I don't think one is better than the other. I'm actually kind of, I'm kind of jealous of some of those badass, especially like the jazzers who like, oh my gosh,
Those guys you learn from.
those,
Yeah.
oh, now I've dated my share of jazz musicians, and
Tell me
I
wasn't the drummer.
learned
Please tell me wasn't the drummers. Thank you. Okay.
no, it
You
was
have more
never the
taste than
drummer.
that. Okay.
It was never. We love you, drummers. We love you, drummers. I just never dated you.
Oh, you
I
caught me
have
on that
dated a
one.
bass player. I have dated a bass player.
Well, then you have some good taste. Outstanding.
Yeah. Well, I used to play bass, but I used to
Yeah.
play contrabass, so upright bass in orchestra, and then I played a little bit of electric
Mhm.
with my band. But yeah, for me, the ultra rehearsing is what frees me up. When
Yeah.
I know something really, really well, then that's when I feel like I can go off the rails. That's when I feel like I can let in that kind of
Awesome.
creativity that we've been talking
Yeah.
about. But I think you brought up an interesting point. Just so much of the music now is so sterile.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that has to do, and I'm gonna throw in an interesting little tidbit here, but a lot of that has to do with how digitized everything is, right?
Mhm.
Everything is digitized, from the instruments to the filters that it gets run in through. The fact that when you're recording in a studio, quite often you are recording in your own booth, and also quite often you're not even in the same flippin' room at the same
Mhm.
flippin' time. You've got people sort of piecemealing down, so that when you get people together. So here's some fun stuff. Uh, it was released this year. The University of Zurich actually did a study with folks. They threw them in the MRI machine. The difference between I'm actually going to pull up this quote because it's really interesting. But the difference between listening to live music
Mhm.
versus listening to recorded music. And this study, I'm going to be quoting from Science Daily here. They said that the University of Zurich has found that live performances trigger a stronger emotional a stronger emotional response than listening to music from a device. Concerts connect performers with their audience,
Mhm.
which may also have to do with evolutionary factors. So this is
Community.
it's community. Well, not only so if you go into the sciencey bits, there's a term called mirroring.
Mhm.
And it's something that, we do as human beings in order to create connections. Yes, we
Yep.
clap, or let's say a performer is up there and they are going through some sort of emotional journey, and suddenly you are feeling it with them, or like you're crying, or
Yeah.
or you're screaming because you're in with 10,000 people who are also screaming, or on that porch when everything becomes crackly and magical.
Mhm.
And it's something that literally a you will experience some of it listening to a recording, but nowhere near to the extent as if you are listening to something live. And I find that very, very fascinating. I find it unsurprising,
Yeah.
but the fact that we can quantify it now, it's like,
Mhm.
we've been trying to say that for ages. It's the same thing with a real instrument versus like a
Digital.
synthesizer.
Yes.
Yeah, 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 yeah. because you're feeling the vibrations of the wood. Okay, well, I'll stop now. I can just
No,
wax on
you are
about
completely
this.
correct on this. However,
Mm.
you know, you take a band like Nine Inch Nails. Trent
Yes.
Reznor is a freaking genius, and he does it all digitally, and he
Yeah.
makes you feel something with that digital garbage. And a lot of that is okay. For instance, there's one Freddie Mercury, right?
Mhm.
There's never going to be another one. All these other people, they can make you feel an emotion, but they're never going to make you feel like Freddie made you feel. So it
And
doesn't
you
matter
have to
what he was
wonder.
recording into.
You have to. Well, I mean, and live is always going to be better. But you know, you kind of, it makes me curious because we do know that there was that thing with his teeth. Like he had more teeth
Mhm.
than
He had
than
2 extra teeth.
2 extra teeth. So you have to wonder how that affected the sound waves and how that sound wave floating across the air into your brain, resonating with your
Mhm.
own bones and
Yeah.
your amygdala and all of that. If literally one of the reasons why we are so obsessed with Freddie Mercury is chemical, or not chemical, is physiological,
Yeah. But
just
that
like live music.
but again, that doesn't explain the Nine Inch Nails thing because
You know
he
what?
does
Now,
very
so
much
with
make you feel something.
what I noticed with Nine Inch Nails is that he uses a lot of really interesting chord progressions. They're
Yes.
not ones that we are used to. He stacks his chords differently than,
Mhm.
and what we have to
A lot of world
remember.
music in there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, what we have to remember is the scale that we use in Western music. You guys, it is arbitrary. It was
But it's right.
established. Well, it's only because we've been trained for it to be
I know.
right?
That's why Oriental, well, I don't want to say Oriental music, the stuff from the Far East is uncomfortable for a lot of us to listen to.
Yeah.
The
Or
scale's weird.
even if you're talking like, you know, Bulgarian women's chorus that does sing on the quarter tone, you know,
Mhm.
so like Eastern European, you're going to get a lot more of that. And it's simply because the West in uh their quest to you know, to search but in both science and art, they wanted to find like those perfect tones. There's a name for it, and I can't think of it. I'm so sorry. Maybe some of our listeners will know it.
I don't remember
But they,
yeah.
yeah, but they were looking for something in the sound waves. Essentially, they didn't want the sound waves to slap against each other. So, like, you
Mhm.
know, the dial tone thing, y'all. If you haven't done this before, get a friend.
333
No, yeah. Well, you get a friend, and one person go ooh, and then the next person just goes slight ooh, and it sounds like a dial tone, right?
Mhm.
But what you're getting, and the reason that it buzzes so weirdly in the ear, is because the sound waves are literally smacking against each other.
Mhm.
And Western music, we did not like that. So we created a scale where all of the sound waves would fit into each other so
Mhm.
that they were not smacking against each other. And one of the exceptions is the tritone,
Yeah.
which is an augmented fourth, which is so we usually have ba ba da 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 bum bum. So that's like bum bum. Sorry, no, that's a fifth. Sorry, bum 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 bum. Here comes the bride, right? So
Mhm.
that's a fourth. Tritone is bum bum,
Just slightly,
and
yeah.
it's slightly up, and it was actually banished from music for a time. Its nickname is
Interesting.
the devil's interval,
Yes.
right? And you'll
Mhm.
hear it in songs like Maria, right?
Yeah.
Um, so this is how much Western thought and Western culture has had an influence into the literally the way we hear music
Mhm.
and what we find acceptable. All right, I went on a massive, and thus endeth the lecture.
The lecture.
Yes, clearly, I'm very passionate about this subject.
But
Very much.
again, but to kind of sidestep this a little bit, there's
Mhm.
nothing wrong with the Western way that we do it because
No,
there's
it's
been some
beautiful.
of the most amazing music ever made. And
Yes.
you know, cavemen did the clock, 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 you know, and it
Yeah,
just kind of built from there. So everything is a build on of everything else, which is kind of nice.
100%.
So I'm building on the Beatles, kids.
All right, you're
You
gonna have
go.
to stop me
Okay.
from talking because I just can't. But I'm just gonna throw this out there because I had this thought the other day. I worked with this incredible accordion player years ago. I'm not going to name names
Love
because
accordion.
he
Yeah.
used to live out where you do. Like he could play anything, anything. And he pulled me aside one day and he said, "You know what? Rock and roll ruined music." And I said,
Wrong.
"Excuse me?" And he said, "Yeah, the Beatles. It was the Beatles. Before the Beatles, everything was complicated. And then the Beatles got popular, and then everything became four chords." Not true. I was thinking about him the other day because
Okay.
I was listening. I was listening to a Beatles album. Some of the stuff they put out is complex, y'all.
Yeah.
It is complex.
Most of
Not
what
a,
they put out was.
was very complex and influenced by world music.
Mhm.
Secondly, I'm sorry, the four chord tunes, simple airs, simple tunes have existed as long as humans have been on the planet.
Listen to old Irish folk music.
Exactly. Exactly. And even when you talk about, like in Asia, I'm half Japanese, so all of their stuff is based on why is my brain not working? What's their scale called?
That's what we've both been
Yeah.
trying to think of this whole time.
Yeah, this is gonna. So again, our listeners, I'm having a massive.
It's not the
brain
major
fart.
scale. It is the.
And it's not
Not-
pentatonic. It's not the
Is it the
pentatonic scale.
chromatic?
It's something else. No, but anyhow,
Anyway, doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter because if you listen to their music within their own scale, there's a lot of simple melodies. This holds true in every culture.
Yeah.
That has a differing scale from the Western. All right, now your turn.
Actually, I want to say this just because
Please.
just to
God,
build on
please.
the four chord jam thing. I think that the simple four chord structure, or even the three chord structure that we went into the punk in the 70s, did more to make more kids musicians than anything
Yes.
else in the world. You could play Joe Satriani, you could play that hair metal stuff. I'm just fantastic, right? But then you hear I can play that. And then you sit there with a guitar and you learn it and you want to keep playing and you get better. You have to have that simple stuff. That's why it's called popular music.
Mhm.
Because that gets people interested. Because what do they say? Like Joe Satriani or Victor Wooten, greatest musicians on the planet, they can go play in a room of 30 dudes. Nirvana would go in and simple four chords and play in a guys and girls in a 100,000 seat auditorium. That's the difference. Oh, is Satriani the better musician? Yes. I mean, by far. But I think it is more important to have simple stuff.
We've
And I
always
don't think that makes
had
mediocrity. Yeah.
We've always had it, even when you're talking about classical composers.
Dun,
Bach,
dun, dun, dun.
you listen, yeah, well, yes, and you listen even okay, so great example, Beethoven's Fifth. If you listen to it as a piece, there are repeated chord progressions, and then he has his B section, and then it's like he's essentially got the bridge. It's like everything is in there. It's just very, very fully realized with 40-piece orchestra, so he gets to get all of those other little voices in, and then you have this melody off the top that gets to go and do its complex thing.
Well, what someone when I was a kid explained classical music to me. They said this: classical music is a bunch of really simple pieces put together with a bunch of really simple pieces that makes it sound complex and makes you feel like you're smarter. Because
Never heard that
you pick up on
before.
on all those small pieces, you feel smarter because you understand this bigger piece. You don't understand everything. You understand that one piece of what's thrown in. And there's nothing other than for violin players and piano, that's different. But there's really nothing that's complex if you take one part of any classical piece. Yes, Romanowski and all that, blah. But in general, you guys, you know what I'm talking about.
Well, it's structure.
Yeah.
I mean, and
that's the practice side.
Yes, exactly. Background as a classical pianist. I mean, one of the things that I would often do and still do if I'm practicing a piece is look at the underlying chord progression.
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, you're just playing flipping arpeggios.
Yeah.
And for those of you who don't know what that is, that's just a broken up chord.
Yep.
Yep, that's just a broken up chord. So it's, I think we sort of mysticize. I don't know if I'm making up that word, but we make there. Yes, there is complex music, and it takes skill, y'all. It takes practice.
And it's a
It takes
sacrifice
devotion. It's a
for
sacrifice
for no audience, unfortunately.
when you do that practicing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's, you're putting in your 10,000 hours, right?
Yeah, I say I don't hold that against anybody. But like I have
If
a
I told you
friend.
made beautiful music, would you hold it against me? Okay, go ahead.
I had a friend who is actually I have two separate guys I can think of.
Mhm.
Two of the greatest drummers I've ever had the opportunity to play with. They both decided when they were younger they wanted to play fusion jazz. That's great. These guys could do they could make their drums literally talk to you. They can do things that I still have no idea how they did. With that being said, they put in their 10,000 hours of work and now both of them play in bar bands because there is no future in that. Sacrifice isn't always worth it. You learn it,
I
but it's this because there's a sacrifice to that kind of music.
I'm gonna argue with that because I always think that art for art's sake is definitely
Mm-hmm.
not only is it a valid thing, but the things that it does to your brain
Yeah.
to study that kind of mind bending, outside the box
Yeah.
music. I mean, those guys are some of I mean, not your guys in particular, but those guys who pursue that are some of the smartest people I
Oh,
know.
they are.
Because
They
they are
absolutely are.
accessing so much more than the 3% than the average human being
Mhm.
accesses throughout their lifetime.
But again, is
Um,
the sacrifice worth the payoff?
I think it depends on who you
Because
are
I mean,
and what you're trying to get out of it.
one of the
If you're
guys
in it for
literally 8
fame,
hours a
that's one
day,
thing.
8
Mhm,
hours a day. He broke it up into 2 4-hour sessions every
mhm.
single day. Did not take a day off for I think 8 years.
Yeah,
That's the
but now he
sacrifice.
has
But
now he
now
can
he can
do
do
something
it,
that
but
nobody else can, and it brings him joy. And the skill brings him
yeah.
joy. We're
But
getting a little dark.
it's hard to go back with that. It's hard to go back and be able to play the simple stuff.
No, it's not. I've
It is for them.
Oh, okay. Well, that's on them.
Yeah,
That's
that's
on
fair.
them because, y'all, I played Shostakovich and then I very, very happily played Whiskey in the Jar. So, it's whatever's fun, right? Now, what
Exactly.
I want to touch on the experience. So we talk about how the audience responds in a live setting.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about what it feels like to be on stage in a live setting versus like the way that feels versus being
Okay, I'm going to answer this question.
okay.
There's a reason why a high percentage of musicians that play live turn into drug addicts. Because and I know that sounds harsh.
No, I kind
but
of know where
this
you're
is
going, but go ahead.
there is no high on the planet that feels like being on stage and something you creative made somebody move their butt. It's transcendent. Um, and you can't find that high anywhere else, which is why a lot of musicians turn into the burnouts, and everybody's head popped to about 15 or 20 of their friends that are musicians that really hit it a little too hard all the time, because it's not a fair thing to say, here, you can have this, now put it away. And
Yeah.
that's why the addiction happens. So that's what it feels like to play on stage. And I know that sounds really negative, but it is incredible.
Well, I think it goes back to the mirroring thing
Mm-hmm.
because, when it's one thing to be in an audience and like feel that mirroring with the one person.
Yeah.
When you're on stage and you are the one person and you
Yeah.
have those, hundreds, thousands, whatever, tens, whatever space you have mirroring back to you and, and you guys are vibing. Because that's all about connection. Um, as many of our listeners know, I was in the Phantom of the Opera on Broadway for over 10 years, well over 10 years, and we had a capacity of 16, 1,700 people, and you know, having that energy every night, and you could really, like, you've heard people say, "Wow, it's a dead audience," or "Wow, it's a great audience." That is not just a whether or not they're responding. It's like an
Mhm.
energy, because you can
Exactly.
have an audience that is stone quiet, but you can tell they're engaged. Like,
Mhm.
they are so invested. Yes,
I just wanna give an example on that.
please.
There's a
Mhm.
band called Snarky Puppy. Um, I know it sounds weird.
I
They
love that.
musically speaking, probably one of the top 5 bands on the planet right now. They are
What kind of music do they do?
jazz-ish.
Okay,
Look up the song Lingus and you'll know what I'm talking about. But
okay.
what they do, they have like 30 people on stage and they're sitting on couches and they have taught their audience because they've trained them over years. Their audience sits there and they all wear headphones because they
What
want to get that whole experience because they didn't want to bleed. They didn't want to have to deal with some concerts they do. Everybody has incredible headphones
are there
because
no speakers?
in some of their concerts, no. And
So
it's all
it's kinda like going to a silent dance party, except it's
kind
live
of, but
music.
it is with the way these
Oh,
musicians
cool.
are, they're so
Yeah,
good because they didn't want to have to deal with all the other stuff.
yeah.
And they've trained their audience
And
to
sound
sit there,
issues.
shut up. If someone does an incredible solo, you clap. Otherwise, you keep your mouth shut. And the energy is like literally a brick wall. It's like bam,
Wow,
bam,
wow.
bam. It's
So
just
it's immersive.
it is complete, and
It's
that's
im
what a good musician is.
Yes,
That's what a
yeah.
good performing musician is.
Yes,
I would say
yes,
that.
yes. I mean, there's a lot of badass studio musicians who you put them in front of an audience, they do
They
not know
suck.
what to do.
Hmm.
Well, and it's because that pressure of having to deliver, it's the same thing with acting. You've got a lot of people who go, "Oh, yeah, that's easy," and it's like,
I can read a line.
let me put you in front of a camera where they are bleeding money, and you are the reason
Hmm.
that this day is gonna go well or not.
Yeah.
It's a different, you know, it's a different animal, and so it's the same thing with music, because there's
Hmm.
an expectation.
Yeah. And there's nothing
I
like
wanna
that
go to one of their
expectation.
concerts. I've never even heard this band, and I wanna go to one of their
We'll
concerts.
we'll be
That just sounds
talking about them
fun.
after. They are
Okay, okay,
so good. They
cool.
I
I
think
mean, and I mean,
they're
I know
they're
there
an East
are
Coast band, so
oh, perfect. Well, I know there are also musicians who require all of their audience members to put their phones in lock boxes
I 100%
before
agree with that.
going. Yep, yep.
Because I hate it. Oh, okay. So things I hate with the live experience. I
Okay.
hate people that are sitting there videotaping the whole thing. Live in the freaking moment. No, you're never
Yeah,
gonna watch that video ever. And
yeah,
if you do, you're gonna show like 10 seconds of it to a friend.
yep.
Stop it. Get a picture. Put it away. You're done. That
I have to agree with you there.
to me, it's live in the moment. And that's the point of going to a live show.
Well, that's the you hit on it, because by spending your whole time with your phone and looking at it through your phone, you've just put a level of separation between you
Mm-hmm.
and the experience you could be having right now. And I mean, a lot of our tech culture kind of encourages that. It's what a lot of people are growing up with now. But I think people are like, they don't even know what they're missing by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if
They
you
don't. You've
next
been
time you
trained.
go to yeah, next time you go to a show, dare yourself not to pull out your phone once. And it might be uncomfortable for a minute, but then it's gonna tick over at some point,
Yeah.
where all of a sudden that show, whatever you're watching, is going to mean so much more. And guess what? You will also remember more of it, and
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna see stuff that you would have absolutely missed otherwise. It's
Yeah.
about being, it's so trite to say it, but it's about being present.
Yeah. And I say, and that's not as I'm not saying this as a musician, I'm saying this as a person.
Yeah, exactly.
And
As a human.
let's
Mhm.
be fair, and this is I also do live engineering. So I'm the guy in the back that mixes the sound. Um it's never going to sound good on your phone because that's not how it's
Never,
mixed. So what's
never.
the point? You're not giving in fact you're not giving the band, you're not giving the engineer any respect on that because that's not what this was made for. This was made for you, nothing in between. Recording's a different animal, and well, we can get
Yes.
into that. But with it's not made to listen to on a
You're
phone
you're
or anything
reminding me
else.
right now something I think a lot of people don't know.
Mhm.
Saturday Night Live. When you hear a band on Saturday Night Live, that is not mixed for you. There's a reason why all the bands sound horrible on
Super
Saturday
Bowl,
Night
yeah.
Live, unless they have pre-mixed tracks
Mhm.
and then have the live musicians just kind of fill it out. Because what you're listening to is you're listening to the board mix. And the board mix does not have all of those bells and whistles. It's one of the reasons why it always just sounds so freaking
Mhm.
weird. And you'll be sitting there and be like, why does my favorite singer sound so weird? And it's like, yeah, well, it's live. Ooh, ooh,
They
ooh.
perform differently.
They perform differently. And not only that, when you're performing live, there is the possibility of something being slightly out of tune, of being naturally
Which makes
slightly
it
out of
better,
tune, which
but
makes
not
it
recorded.
better, which makes it better. Part of it is you're not gonna some of that, like, visceral, like, in your rear end, you know, chills moment only happen because things are just a tad
Yeah,
just a tad, because it makes it
exactly.
human. It makes it so human.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've hit on the audience thing, we've hit on the
Mhm.
psychological. Now let's talk about relationships within a band. Do you find, and this is something I find, certain instruments always get along better with certain instruments. I mean, there's a lot of dynamics changes, male and female bands in the same band together, that changes things. What are some of your thoughts on some of this, the relationships change? I mean, because you are a family. Um, and speaking of which, and this is my advice for any young band, if you have a male female band or you're gay or whatever, don't be incestuous. That's your brother or sister. Don't, because it never turns out well. Unless you
Never.
start out married, no. Sorry, I'll just leave that.
There is wisdom in what you speak of.
That's for anybody that's young
Yes.
and getting in a band for the first time.
Yeah.
Trust me,
Resist.
always a bad idea.
Resist the
And
urge.
that is a temptation
Yeah.
because you see each other
Listen,
at your rock star high.
it's hard enough when you are dear, dear friends.
Hmm.
It is hard enough when you are dear, dear friends. I mean, I've gotten into massive fights with fellow band members. I mean, like should have ended our friendship fights. And thank goodness we are grown ass adults
Yeah.
and and our human beings who have worked on ourselves so that we could come back to it and talk to each other and
Hmm.
be like, hey, not just apologies, but let's talk through it. And then 9 times out of 10 you find out that you're arguing about totally different things. Anyhow, yes, I agree with you. I So who are the people who get along and who do, well, I can speak more to the people who tend not to.
Okay.
And that is if you have more than one person who is featured, like
I can get to
like the
some
lead
extent. Yeah.
guitar and the singer.
Yeah.
Sometimes it becomes a little bit of like an ego play.
Unless those people are both songwriters and they write together. That's the only time that changes.
Yeah. Or if they're big enough to have those conversations.
But
Because
we aren't. We're
everybody
musicians.
we're no, we're humans. We're humans. Everybody wants their moment to shine, baby. Everybody wants
Hmm.
their moment to shine. And then if you have somebody in the supporting, um, and it depends on the band, because there's some bands that really feature
Yeah.
everybody. But if you got somebody in the supporting who really wishes that they were the star, that's when you end up with issues. I don't know. What are
Yeah.
your thoughts on it?
Well, I've noticed like the rhythm section always gets along because you have to.
Always. You have to.
The drummer and the bassist get along, and if they don't,
You're a unit.
just quit. It's not
Mhm.
going to work. Um, almost every one of my friends that are musicians that are like my best friends, they're all drummers. Just there's something that's
Sorry to all your best friends that we had the conversation about drummers before.
oh no, I'd say the same thing to me. They say the same thing about bass players, not in a erotic way, but it is very intimate. Being
Yeah.
locked in a drum and bass, it is very intimate. It is
You have to tune
intertwining of
into each other.
souls. You
Yeah.
have to know that person. They have to know you. And the best drummers and best bass players will sit there and they just see somebody and they know and they just pow. And
Yeah.
I've had a few of those, and those are just amazing.
Yeah.
Drummers
Yeah,
don't
you know.
usually get along with anybody else, or unless they date the lead singer, because that happens for some weird reason. This happens a lot.
So now I have a theory about that.
Okay.
And my theory is that the drums are so aggressively loud.
Mhm.
And it's hard to do anything if you can't just put your whole body and soul into it. So, and you've got a kit that's usually, unless you're playing a huge, a stadium or, some large space, usually the kit is like right behind everybody and everybody's like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh, I can't hear myself. I can't hear myself think. I feel like somebody going bam, bam, bam into the back of my head. So there is this, I think there's a little bit of a subconscious resentment from everybody else, that there is this loud, 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 loud thing just going
Mhm.
bam, bam, right?
Yeah.
And then for the drummer, even though they know that they need to do what they have to do, there's a little bit of subconscious resentment that everybody is subconsciously,
Mhm.
upset about that.
Playing while they're tuning. Drummers do that on purpose, by the way. That's
Oh,
a fact. The drummers do it on purpose. While you are tuning on stage, they are hitting their drums because they find it hilarious. Sorry. You know what I'm talking about right
No,
now.
I've been very lucky. I have not encountered that, but I could see it happening.
It happens a lot. Anyway, where were you going with that?
I don't remember. I think I said what I needed to say. I think I said what I needed.
Okay,
That was
so
yeah.
who does the singer usually get along with? You have been the singer and
I have been, but I've always been in very equitable bands singing
so
wise.
it's more business.
It's yeah. And I mean and those people have become dear friends of mine because I here's the thing. I love singing lead, but I love singing backup. I'm a harmony, I can't say that word. I'm a harmony I'm a glutton for harmony.
I
And
see
if
where you're going with that. Yeah.
Yep. Let's just say that. I
Oh.
love it. I arrange music. I do
Mhm.
vocal arrangements, and I love creating something that, that I would enjoy singing.
Yeah.
So that's been really helpful. But as far as like, I feel like the singer always ends up with like the bass player. I do.
I've always been friends with the singer, at least.
Okay.
And
Well,
whenever it's not, it's not it's not a good situation.
Well, yeah, no. I mean, again, like we talked before, don't poop where you eat.
Exactly.
I know it's sometimes very difficult to resist. But if that is the case, maybe
Mhm.
consider, striking out on with a different band or something, or
Yeah.
or have an agreement. If things go sour, who's gonna leave?
Yeah. Because
Something.
let's be honest, especially a rock and roll
Oh, you can kill a
thing,
band.
you're
You
not
can
going
literally
to stay
end the
together.
band. Yeah,
You're
you
not
can
gonna stay together.
end the band. Yeah.
Mhm. I've had more than one of those, and it's never been my fault on those, by the way, because I was always smart enough. I got married young, so that helps. But yeah.
And you married a good one. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so the different positions in a band, and it
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily matter what um instrument you play. And I know I'm missing a few, but we have basically the band leader.
Mhm.
Band leader is the one that everybody defers to, or they've self
Or
put
they
it on
should.
themselves. Yeah.
Or they should.
And that's musically where they go. And then there's the lyricist, which I think is an entirely different thing. Um, and it's
The
usually
lyricist, you
if
mean
it's a
you mean
songwriter.
oh,
Yeah.
okay.
If
I
it's the
just wanted to clarify
songwriter,
that. Yep.
even if it's not the singer, they get a lot more control. And it's nice to be in one of those positions. It's a little lonely, but it's nice being in that position. If you are somebody like me, that when I go into a band, I have a vision. Because hey, we practice dink, 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 and then we work
Mhm.
around in that. I want you to know the dink, dink, dink. Does that make sense? I want you to know point A, point B, point C, and everything else, I don't care. you know? So I love being in that band leader position because that gives me the power to
You
do
want to
things that I want.
control you
I'm a controller.
power, ultimate power.
I'm a control
Yes.
freak. I know I am. I mean, that's you. Anybody that's been on the show with me, you know. Not in a bad way. That's just
No, it's not a
I
bad
have
way
a
because
vision.
I am also a bit of a control freak, except that we like I feel like we're more like type A minus, which my friends tell me that means that I'm a type A person, but it's enough that we can give and take to create
Hmm.
something that
Yeah,
is lovely. And I think that's the sign actually of a good leader is somebody who doesn't have to control every little bit of all of the
exactly.
minutia, but somebody who has the vision that can
Hmm.
still keep the ship going and make adjustments
Yeah.
as necessary. But okay, so keep going.
Okay. Well, those are the two I can think. And then there is, basically the hired gun, and they may be a part of the band,
Hmm.
but they're never going to contribute to anything. And those are the easiest people to get along with because they just want to play what you tell them to play. And I mean, they may be very good at their instrument, but they're not going to push things. And then
Okay, go ahead.
there's the other person that wants too much power and doesn't deserve it because they don't know what they're doing. And that's not in
That
every
happens
band.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that happens a lot. Is there anything I'm
So
missing on there? Or?
yeah, so I feel like there's the band leader. There's usually a second in command. There's somebody that the
Hmm.
band leader you will seek out the most
Yeah.
to make artistic decisions, and because of that, they'll will often be a little bit of a deferment to that second person, but the band leader always has the has final say. Then you have the show pony. That's the person who
The
is like
talent.
the talent. So
Okay.
like
Yeah.
the lead guitar, somebody who's out there to be the look ma, no hands, right?
Yeah.
I There is always a goofball. There is always one
Yeah.
person who no matter what happens, you're
Got to
like,
make a
great,
joke.
great, okay, let's get back. Come on, come on. You gotta reel them in.
Hmm.
Um, then you've got like the steady person who it in a way is the hired gun, but they're a little more invested, like they're invested in whatever you're creating, but they're happy to be there and they will do whatever they need to do to
Yeah.
just to get her done. Um and then, of course you've got the people in between. I think everybody has a diva moment. I think everybody has a moment where there's a line when you're with the band for a long time.
Yeah.
It's like it's like a family. Sooner or later, everybody's gonna rub everybody the wrong way.
Oh,
But
geez.
hopefully by then you're such a family
Yeah.
that, forgive and forget.
Okay. So now this is another band question that I have. One other thing I want to talk about, but okay. So how far is too far? Let's say you've been playing together for lots of years
Hmm.
and you're a successful band. This person makes a mistake on stage almost every concert. And I'll tell you exactly what I'm thinking of. The drummer in Bon Jovi is terrible. Um, he's been playing these songs for 50 years or something, and they still, literally, last time I saw him, he dropped the beat twice. Not like got a little off, he dropped the beat, stopped, everyone else kept playing, and then he came back in. And it's not a rare occurrence. How far is too far on that? Because I mean, they're a band, so they don't want to go anywhere. But
Don't you think that one, see, that one is tough because when you have
40 years, yeah.
history, because I know someone who worked with a very, very, very famous pop star. And there was a musician who had some issues along those lines, and that pop star let them go for a while, um, because they were like, "We just can't do it anymore."
Hmm.
And, he got his act together and came back, and that pop star said, "Yes, yes, you can come back," because history.
Yeah.
That's history. So that's I mean, I understand why Bon Jovi would be hesitant. Now, that being said, for me, if it's happened 3 3 times, like 3 gigs, then it's like, "All right, we gotta have a conversation.
Yeah.
We gotta have a conversation." Because you're bringing down the quality of the entire band, the entire set,
Hmm.
the entire What about you? What about you? What's your
Well, say I have a hard time of this is why I don't like being friends with people in
Oh,
bands.
P.S. 3 in a row. Okay,
Yes.
go ahead. Go ahead.
This is why I don't like being friends with people in a band, because if I'm going to be a lot more concerned with their feelings, and I will let my performance suffer a lot more
Mm,
on just general performance if it's somebody that, they're a good guy. I don't want to, blah, blah, they're trying, and I know their struggle. And so it's
mhm.
hard if it's somebody that I'm not friends with. You 3 in a row, you're done.
Yeah.
And that, okay, and I'm gonna be a little more specific than you. 3 in the same spot, because maybe you're working on
Oh,
new
yeah.
music.
Yeah.
Things happen.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially the first couple gigs of a,
There's always space for being human. Always, always.
and that's part of the fun. But if it's so extreme that the audience notices, because there's a difference between audience notices and I notice. I'm going to notice every mistake you make.
Mhm.
Um, Audience notice none of these mistakes. I let it slide a lot more.
Mhm.
And if it gets to where I'm annoyed by it, then I'll say something. So
Right.
it's kind of a sliding scale. It's
Yeah.
kind of tough.
It is. It is. Like you're not going to judge someone for making a mistake, but if they keep making it, then you're going to start judging it. Because
Mhm.
you know what I love? The musicians I love to work with are the ones that it's clear they've done their homework. It's clear they're good at what they do. And when they make a mistake, because they do their homework and they're good at
They
what they
knew it
do,
themselves.
everybody laughs
Yeah.
because it's like, dude,
Yeah.
whatever. You're fine. You're good.
Yeah.
That's what now, do you have any specific experiences or stories with that?
None that I can actually say, because I just,
Okay,
yeah.
because we know too many people.
Yeah. Well, that's one of those things. I just, if I had to, there's people I've had to let go because they made mistakes and they were friends, and I don't like to bring it up because
Yeah,
it is what it
of course,
is.
of course, because it's business and it's friendship, and
Yeah.
that's
It's
always
tough.
that's the one of the hard things about the business. Yeah.
But going back to the porch stuff, right? I got to play
Mm-hmm.
with BB King once when I was a horrible musician.
How cool is
I
that?
was terrible, and he stood there. He heard all my mistakes, and he smiled. And we wasn't live or anything, but it's kind of a porch setting. And
Mm-hmm.
he smiled, and when he messed up, he kind of acknowledged me, and he
Mm-hmm.
went right back to it. And that's why I like that porch setting,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Well, there's so
that's when
much
you learn.
grace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you have to, because
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, we have this weird, as humans, we already have a fixation with perfection, and now with the advent of, we can tape everything, we can fix everything, we can do it over and over again. This expectation to be perfect all the time is absolute insanity. It is not part of the
hmm
human condition unless you put in those 10,000 hours and then put in more hours to perfect each thing it's that is artistry.
Now this is going over
And
to the
even
go ahead.
people at that level make mistakes. Okay, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, going over to the recording side. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yes, if I'm going to the studio, it's going to be perfect because that's me. However, a really famous song, "Creep" from Radiohead, right?
Great song.
The guitar player, he was not happy with the take, so he
Mhm.
tried to ruin it. Kicking, kicking, burn, and none of that was there. He created that because he was irritated and frustrated, and that was all a mistake. And now it is one of the greatest songs ever and that's why I like mistakes. If you make
Yes.
a mistake, if you can play off of it,
Yeah.
if you hit the same note wrong 3 times, you're just playing fusion jazz. Um, it's fact. But it's that if you can work on a mistake and make it something amazing,
Well,
that's
there's so many fantastic stories. So a buddy of mine was if you've seen the documentary on We Are the World, a
yes, I
buddy
do.
of mine did the vocal arrangements for that. And
Really.
and he worked with Michael Jackson for years, and he's worked with all he's one of those people where his resume is just an embarrassment of riches. And he talks often about there this is a famous story, so I don't remember which song it was. It was either Billie Jean or I want to say it was Billie Jean. Michael was looking for a very specific drum sound. He was a perfectionist. He was a
hmm
perfectionist, and he couldn't find it. And he couldn't find it, and they had tried, I mean, dozens of drums for days. Like he was not getting it. And they were taking a break, and somebody like knocked a bookshelf or something, and a screwdriver fell off the top and hit the lid of a drum case, a
Really?
very specific drum, like this huge drum case that they had
Hmm.
had shipped in to try it out. They had opened it up, or no, I don't remember if it was closed or open, but the you can Google this, but the screwdriver fell off, hit the lid of the drum case, and Michael went, "That's it, that's it, that's it," and that's what you hear
Hmm.
in one of these famous. So it's that like happy accident thing. I don't necessarily say go and maliciously make, go to mess things up, but
Yeah.
as you in your story, it still yielded something great.
Mm-hmm. And
And
no one would know
some
that
of our
song now.
favorite songs have that. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Some of
what
our
was
favorite songs have mistakes.
Inagata has several mistakes that changed everything. I mean, there's some,
It's
yeah.
it's perfection in imperfection. That
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean that you have a right to go suck. I'm sorry, I'm going to say that and be mean. That
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you have a right to go and not practice and not. I mean, there are people who don't practice who have such innate talent, but
Mm-hmm.
if you're not practicing means that you're not good, there's no excuse.
Yeah. There's a difference between experimentation and
Yeah.
talentless hack. But well, I mean, even, and I want to throw this example out.
Mhm.
Pantera, my favorite metal band of all time. Chris, that was for you. Um, now, when they got signed, the A&R
Mhm.
guy showed up, and they were just really doing their set, and they were just blah 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 blah, right? I mean, doing their thing, and the guy left. And what he really went to do is he left to go say, "We got to sign these guys." They said they took that off, and because they're like, "Okay, he's gone. Let's have fun." They had the best concert they'd ever had after that, and they just went nuts everywhere. And that went from signing, well, we'll experiment on you, to sign, sign, sign,
Yeah,
sign.
yeah, yeah.
That's that happy accident. That's really
You touched on something I didn't expect to talk about today, and that is how much, and I've talked about this with people before, and I discovered this over and over again about myself. But as an artist, one of the hugest things, like people always talk about, be brave, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, not everybody can just be brave.
not
Okay.
everyone should.
Not everyone should. But to me, it is less about being brave and it's more about giving yourself permission.
That's
So
good.
after
Yeah.
that guy left and they weren't under this, this pressure to perform, they were able to relax and give themselves permission to play.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly they had some of the best stuff that they never would have dreamed. Now, that also takes practice,
Yeah.
is allowing that. That's a whole thing. But yes, I am so down with happy accidents. Some of my favorite recordings of myself were like they were just in the moment. I wrote and recorded a song years ago that there was something that weird that happened with my voice. I think I had spit stuck in my throat for that take or something.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up keeping it because it was cool.
Yeah.
It just sounded cool. And I mean, it's like, yeah, just go with it, man. Go with it.
Well, here's another mistake that you have heard a million times. You don't realize you've heard it. That's how good the mistake was. Isn't she lovely? The harmonica, there's a section, the just saying, and he just kind of drops it because he was done playing. They left that in. To this day, Stevie Wonder can't listen to that song.
I love it. I love it.
But yeah, if you know where it is, you'll hear it, but you're never going to hear it if you don't. And that's kind of those.
Right.
Now, this is the difference between, and this last thing we're going to hit on is live versus recording.
Yeah. Different animal. Oh, different animal.
Need to be
every
perfect
way.
when you're recording. Now,
the
way I do it, because I work behind the scenes, this is how I like to record, and this gives me my best live sound with perfection. Take one, you are going to hit the song straight through, like your mistakes and all, as long as you don't drop the beat. We're going to record that, right? And then we're going to come back with the drums, and we're going to have a perfect setup, and it's just going to be the drums you playing with that track.
Mm.
and that's how I rebuild because that's the only way to me it feels live.
So that you can still have that
Energy.
communication, that energy of the
Yes.
communication. Yeah, I've actually, I mean, I've recorded at the same time in separate rooms, that often happens just for the isolation.
Especially for the singer.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and to be quite frank, I that is one of my least favorite ways to record
Hmm.
because you are, even if you can see each other from booth to booth,
Yeah.
um, there is something about the way that, whether it's a voice or an instrument, the way that it disturbs the air,
That's fair.
that will magnify that energy, the specialness,
Hmm.
the sound, everything. Even especially like if you're talking like harmony stuff, I did some recording of some a cappella arrangements that I had done. And we so on the recommendation of my sound engineer, um, we recorded separately, and I hated it. I hated the end product
Hmm.
because it didn't, even though you're staring at each other and you can hear each other through the cans, it's still not the same. It's
Yeah.
still not the same as being in and being with each other and breathing together. There's this synchronicity that happens where
Yeah.
suddenly you're not trying to take cues off of breathing with each other. You just are.
Yeah. That's one of the few people that I bring in together. I bring in background singers,
Mhm.
not the lead singer,
Yeah,
unless
no, no,
they're
no.
just
Lead
going to
singer
do it.
has to be
But
yeah,
the background singers, I like them all together. The
yeah.
drums, if I'm doing
Mhm.
drums and percussion, I want them all together.
Mhm. Mhm.
But guitars, no. Bass, no. Bass
Yeah.
will play the most with the drums, but
Well, what's great about bass is, I
perfection.
mean, they're laying down. They
Yeah.
are a rhythm instrument. They
Mhm.
are a percussive
They're
instrument.
the right in the middle. Yep.
They are right in the middle. A lot of singers we talk about, who do you listen to the band? And people will say, "Oh yeah, listen to the drummer for the beat." I listen to the bass player. I listen to the bass player because he's doing all of the changes in time.
Yeah.
So he's telling me where I'm at. If I just listen to the drums, I may or may not know where I'm at.
Well, because they're also giving you your melody lines as well.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
sometimes, but
Well,
they're giving
at
my
least,
chord progression.
yeah,
They're
your
giving me my
progressions.
chord
That's what I'm
progression.
looking for.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So now, which is more
Mm,
stressful for you?
mhm.
20,000 people that you're in front of, doing it live,
Uh-huh.
or doing it in front of a sound engineer and a producer in a studio?
I totally have an answer. I want to hear yours first.
Um, it depends on which side of the console I'm on. If I'm playing, I will play. I would rather be playing in front of live.
I am
I do not get
yeah.
nervous in front of people. I don't. That because the risk of perfection when you know you're going for perfection. Not because, well, I'm hoping to get to perfection. No, you have to get perfection.
And if you don't, it is immortalized for all time.
You got to do it again and
Somebody's
again and
got a
again. Yeah,
recording of it. Yeah, but sometimes it's just not happening. You're doing it over and
it
over
happens.
again. You
Yep.
think it's going to get better, and it just gets worse. And you're just like,
Mm-hmm.
same guy I was talking about earlier. Was gosh, who was he working? Some very very famous singer. Um, it was kind of the same thing. She had come in from another gig. I think she was already like I think she was already doing a concert and had come in afterwards to record. She was not into it. She just a lot of her did not want to be there. They did take after take, and it just wasn't, talented, accomplished singer was not happening. And finally, my buddy Tommy was like, let's just put this away. Let's just put this away for now. I don't think he'll mind if I mention his name, Tom Baylor. And he said, let's just put this away for now. And she was like, what? She was shocked, but finally she was like,
Nothing
okay,
wrong with that. Yep.
another, fine,
That's somebody
whatever.
that's experienced that knows.
Yep. And then came back the next day and nailed it.
Mm-hmm.
Nailed it. So there's, I think there's such a pressure in the studio because it's going to be immortalized. Like
Yeah.
whatever take you pick, or whatever sections, that is out there forever. I
Mhm.
definitely have recordings out there that I'm like, I would not have chosen that take, but
Yeah.
it's when it's not always your choice. If you're not producing, it ain't your choice.
Now, me, on the other hand, I
Mhm.
have stuff that's out there that's definitely mistakes, but I
Mhm.
am not ashamed of any of it because you know what? At that moment, that take was mine,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. True.
I own that.
True.
I know it's different because I play instead of sing, but it's a different animal, because I'm just
It's
like,
yeah.
this was at that moment, that's what I gave you, and that was if you're not playing with emotion, you shouldn't be playing.
Yeah.
That was the emotion I gave you. That's what I felt at that moment. So I'm not going to be ashamed of it, even if it's technically not perfect.
There is a beautiful, it's out right now, and PBS just put it on their Insta. Ruthie Ann Miles, who is a stage and screen star, she recently was in Hawaii, singing for Memorial Day,
Mhm.
and she sang Aloha Oe. And I didn't see any of the lead up to it, so I'm guessing that either she knows or has met this person who lost his son. And there's a slideshow going. Oh my God, I am tearing up now. Holy smokes. She's singing this. She gets to the chorus. You guys, no joke. Oh my God. She gets to the chorus and she can barely get it out. Like she doesn't. She's like,
Aw.
aloha, oe, aloha. And it is, oh, so amazing. And there are some people who would look at that and be like, oh, yeah, she's not singing. She doesn't sound great. And it's like,
Oh.
no, it is raw, stunning, beautiful emotion. And I would listen to it and watch it 100 times if I could emotionally take it, which I cannot.
You'll watch again in a week or so.
Yeah, maybe in a month or
But
two.
unfortunately, with those
Mhm.
those amazing emotional things that it's brought, the
Mhm.
more you listen to it, the less it affects you, and that takes it away.
Yes, which is
And
why
that
there are
bothers
certain
me a little
things
bit. Yeah.
that's like, well, again, we're talking about something that's recorded, so you get to quote unquote experience it over and over again when you're at a live performance, you put your flippin' phone
Mhm.
away and you just be there.
Exactly.
That is something that will always be special for you.
Yeah.
I
Now,
mean, yes, you can
yeah.
replay the memory, and if you
Yeah.
keep replaying the memory, yes, you will take. It's like Malamars. Malamars should only be available in the winter when they used to only be available in the winter because the chocolate coating was too
Thin,
delicate
yeah.
that it would melt if you produced it in the summer months. And when I think it's been about 5 or 6 years when they made them available all year round, I was like,
Takes the
screw you,
special away.
Malamars. It takes the
It
special
it takes the
away.
special away. Now, and we're gonna close this up, but I gotta say this last
Yes.
thing. There's only one artist in the world where you will get the same emotional response live as you do when he's recorded, Willie Nelson. And that was that part.
I think that has more to do with the drugs that he was taking, but go ahead. Oh.
Okay. 3, 2. Okay, so check out the website www.iheartgeekshow.com. Use the com. We
We
paid extra for it.
we paid extra for it.
Go to the Facebook, go to the Twitter, talk to us. We always do talk back.
You have been listening to the latest episode of the iHeart Geek Show. Make sure you visit our website at www.iheartgeekshow.com. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you check us out on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And keep on geeking on to all of you geek rock stars.